I want to welcome you to today's meeting of the Hagerstown Area Religious Council. My name is Richard Wilson. I am the treasurer of HARC, and what we did at our last meeting when I found out that our president was unable to make today's meeting is we went down the list, and guess what? I became the host, just like that. And I'm glad to see you. Let's begin with a word of prayer, if you will. Lord, you have brought us to today. With all of our varied life experiences, we pray that thou wilt use us to bring your kingdom on this earth, that you will excite our curiosity, excite our compassion, and let us put together our relationships with the people that we are gathered with today to move forward. We ask all of this in your holy name. Amen. Kathy, I want to turn this over to you so you can introduce our panelists today. We do not have any particular announcements that anyone has brought us, but I do want to let you know that at the end of the meeting, when I close it, that there might be something that sneaks in. So with that, Kathy.
Thanks, Richard. And whoop. Okay. This microphone's not 100% working well, but thank you all for being here today, and thank you for those who are tuned in on Facebook. I had a number of folks say that they wouldn't be in person but will be watching live or watching the recording. So there's a lot more viewers than you realize. So I thank our speakers for being here today, our panelists, and for taking the time out of their busy days, because you guys do a lot to work with kids and families, and so being here I know is a stretch of your time. Also would like to, I'd like to introduce our speakers and start into the program. Our speakers, one who's not able, sorry. Okay, so Dana Pentoni was supposed to be here from Washington County Public Schools. She coordinates all the school support services, and Kathy is going to fill you in on why she's not able to make it here today, but it actually highlights the reason that we're here today, the challenges of our families. I'm excited to have Kathy Kerns with us. She's the director of the Washington County Judy Center, and she'll explain a little bit more of what, and she's also a member of First Christian Church and directs Good Roots Furniture Ministry, which some of you all may have heard of and even referred to. Then we have Jen Younker, and Jen is the director of Bester Community of Hope. Hopefully everybody knows what that is by now, but she'll explain a little bit more. And HARC has been engaged with Bester in a number of their programming. And then we have Tom Kline, and he's the director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Washington County. And we partner with Tom to do adverse childhood experiences trainings, but then all on other things and recruiting mentors from our congregations to mentor children through that program. So I'm looking forward to that. I'd also kind of like to call out, she's not officially on the panel, but we might throw her in there. Jessica Scott is here, and I'm grateful that you are. She's from Habitat for Humanity of Washington County, but she also is on the board of the Robert W. Johnson Community Center and has been acting executive director there for a little while. So thank you for all that you do, Jessica, and we might be throwing a few questions at you. All right. So first of all, I'd like to get started with our panel to just introduce themselves, talk a little bit about the program, the work that they do, and and maybe highlight some needs of our children as they see the highest needs. And then we're going to ask some specific questions and then open it up to all of you to ask questions as well.
Good afternoon. Thank you, first of all, for having us here and for having me, because you are a dynamic group. I love working with HARC in the many different ways that we have worked together, and also the individual entities that make up HARC. You are a group that makes a difference in Hagerstown, so I just need to say that in Washington County. The Judy Center is a program that it's a grant-funded program. It's a partnership of many agencies, and we currently have a grant to support families in Ruth Ann Monroe and in Bester Elementary. Essentially, we work with our families who have children birth through kindergarten. So we not only support our pre-K and K in the school, but we also work with our child care providers. We work with our families. And our goal is for them to enter school ready to learn. So enter school able to access learning. So however that looks, if that is, it's a comprehensive model. So if that means helping families find child care that is quality child care, early childhood programs that are quality programs, access dental or medical needs for their family, help with safe and stable housing. It's all of that. It's together. And so I do have a brochure for you, so that picture of who those partners are, and a little more about the work that we do, because it's, to put it in a nutshell, sometimes it's kind of challenging. As Kathy had said, Dana Pentney, who is the director of our Student in Transition program, you might know, call it homelessness, is not able to be with us today. Actually, she's doing her job in working right now with a family who has been evicted. So that definitely takes precedence over being here today. What Dana would like you to know, or the information to share, is that essentially Washington County generally has about 800 students who are homeless at some point during the year. 800. So with that, I am going to pass the microphone on to you, Jen.
All right, thanks, Kathy. And I do want to, Dana's not here, but Dana is one person who serves all 800 of those kids in a school year. An absolutely phenomenal job. So thank you again. My name is Jen Younker, and I am the director at Bester Community of Hope, and located in the south end of Hagerstown, and primarily provides support to families within the Bester Elementary School District. So our initiative is best described as a collective impact program, and we operate in 3 domains. We support families. So in our families domain, we provide intensive in-home family support. So that may look like a few home visits, or that could be something that's quite more intensive. And families can be with us for 2+ years. So it's family driven, so it depends on what specific needs a family has. The top 3 social issues that we find that are impacting families in our community, and this isn't just particular to the South End, but certainly citywide for sure, is homelessness. If that is not the #1 primary concern that I hope that folks walk away with today, we're back. That is definitely the biggest issue that we face in supporting families. We're running out of buildings, so it's not even that someone doesn't have the income or they're not meeting criteria. The homes don't exist. And if you're not familiar, we have lots of camps. Our hotels are full at capacity with families. There are over 200 children residing in the Dagmar, Crown Plaza, over 200 kids. So at the end of the day, our families have nowhere to go, which will kind of lead into hopefully some of the questions that you have. We provide a lot of parent support groups. We have a Hispanic parent support group, and then we have some other treatment groups that are strategic around trauma or positive parenting practices. We also do a lot of work in our schools. So we operate a free after-school program for kids, connecting them with safe, healthy adults and providing some great opportunities. So some of those will look like Girls on the Run. So that is a really awesome program that is available here in the county that gets girls active and learning about wellness, but then pairs them up with strong female leaders. And at the end of their practice term, so I think it's, they do it twice a year, they'll do a 5K. We provide soccer, some type of art clubs at times, and social emotional wellness groups. We also provide a lot of support to Bester Elementary itself and providing support to teachers, school and personnel. And then lastly, in our neighborhood efforts. So that might look like providing neighborhood trainings, working with neighborhood residents and leadership opportunities, and really addressing some of these socioeconomic barriers that folks are facing.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Tom Kline. I'm the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Washington County. And thank you, Kathy, and to the Hagerstown Area Religious Council for inviting us to be a part of today. It's always a great opportunity to speak to the community about the needs of the agency and the needs of the community. And as the others have mentioned, you know, HARC has been really actively involved in the community. And so having this opportunity to speak directly with you about the needs of our agency is really a golden opportunity. So thank you for the invitation. I'm going to try to share briefly a little bit about our agency. I'll try to cover it quickly because I know that the focus today is really to more broadly talk about the needs of kids in our community. But most of you are probably familiar with Big Brothers Big Sisters. We, in a nutshell, we recruit volunteers from the adult volunteers from the community to serve as mentors for kids, primarily as one-to-one mentors, but we are expanding into group mentoring this year in an effort to be able to serve more kids in our community. Our mission is to defend the potential of kids and to create possibilities for them. And, all of us have had an experience with a mentor outside of our family, within our family, what have you. And, those special friendships or special relationships really can change the trajectory of anyone's life. So, just a little bit about our history. We've been in operation in Washington County since 1956. We're an affiliate of Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. There are approximately 300 affiliates across the United States, and there are actually affiliates in 12 countries around the world. We're considered a small affiliate based on the number of kids we serve and our annual operating budget. But just to share a little bit about our littles, most of the littles that we serve, the kids that we serve, have experienced some type of diversity in their young lives. And the majority of them are from single parent households, or they're being raised by their grandparents. Most of the kids come from families that have lived in poverty for generations. There's a fairly high rate of mobility with our families. Most of them do live in some type of subsidized housing, but there's still a lot of transition, a lot of movement from place to place. I often share the story of my first little brother. During his elementary school years, he actually attended 4 elementary schools in kindergarten through 5th grade. I was able to actually, I think I went to 3 of them with him, so that worked out well. So there was at least, a little bit of consistency. Most of the kids we serve are academically behind or have challenges with educational attainment. And the families that we serve are definitely impacted by incarceration. Usually it's about 10% of the kids that we serve have a parent that's incarcerated. We've actually had some kids over the years that have been referred to the program and both parents are incarcerated. So you can imagine how impactful that would be in a young person's life. Child abuse and neglect, we know that in our community we have one of the highest rates of child abuse and neglect in the state of Maryland. Now, part of that is we have such an active Department of Social Services, and they look into things and they provide resources, and they do everything that they can to support the families. But we do know that that is a need in the community. And then mental health, I think that's become more, even before the pandemic, mental health, we've seen a definite increase in the number of kids that we serve that are experiencing somewhat significant mental health issues. Some of them resulting in hospitalization, that type. We are fortunate. We do have a lot of resources in the community, but even with all the resources we have, it's still sometimes just not enough. We do, at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we sort of focus broadly on 3 areas. We look at education. As I mentioned, a lot of our kids are a little bit behind. We look at relationships, and then we look at healthy choices, trying to help the kids, make healthy choices for themselves. We attempt to track outcomes the best that we can. We're actually working on trying to enhance that a little bit more so that we can capture even better measures of outcome and impact for the kids. But we have a number of programs that historically our focus has always been one-to-one mentoring, and that continues to be our focus. But we are branching out and going to be providing group mentoring at the Boys and Girls Club at their Elgin Station Community Center site and at Girls Inc. And the reason that we're doing that is the number of kids that we serve is directly dictated by the number of volunteers we can recruit. So each year in one-to-one relationships, we have a mandate to serve at least 100 kids in one-to-one relationships. And we've been successful in doing that, and in some years, 120, 130. But we know, looking at our target population, that there are actually thousands of kids in the community who actually are in our target population. So we said, what can we do to try to reach more of those kids? And the after-school programs are doing a great job. The recreation center certainly has played an important part in that over the years. But what else can we do to try to reach more kids? So we're doing that. We're getting that started. Actually, the first meeting will be next week. So we're excited about that. So we do have part of our affiliation is we benefit from all of the experience of the national office. So all of our processes are dictated by them. So like our enrollment processes, our matching processes, and then our support that we provide for matches after the matches are formed. Those are all dictated and guided by research from our national office, which is really helpful, and it lends itself to more success within the matches and longer lasting matches. So our most urgent need, you guessed it, volunteers. So We are eager to, reach the faith-based community. Our office is actually located in Haven Lutheran Church, and we've done some presentations there. We have a partnership with St. Paul's Reformed Church. They view us, and we them, we're partners. And then there are a number of other churches where we've, Lifehouse Church is another that we've, sort of partnered with to some extent. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for us. We have, with the different volunteer opportunities that we're offering, that, pretty much would fit anyone's availability. So, definitely would be interested in exploring that and talking more, maybe directly with your congregations or with your, if you have committees that are focused on community outreach, that kind of thing. We would love to talk with you about that. Let's see. Okay, so I think I covered everything.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody. Jess, did you want to speak just for a moment? If you want to pop around, I'd love for you to just share about Robert W. Johnson Community Center and what you do there. Sorry, guys.
There's always room at the table.
That's right. Always room at the table.
The community center is at 109 North Avenue in the north side of town. We're right in the middle of the Jonathan Street community, and so we're surrounded by Park Place and Sumans and Bethel Gardens. And so the majority of the children that we deal with, just like everyone else has already said, have multiple adverse childhood issues. They come from, majority come from single parent homes. The children have seen things that the majority of us could never even imagine in their homes. So we offer a summer camp for free for 9 weeks, and after school program where we normally have about 40 to 50 students, but we have found these last couple of years that our lack of transportation has, caused our numbers to go way down. Thankfully, the Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., and those organizations have vans and can pick the children up and take them to safe places. But there's still an awful lot of children that don't have anything to do after school, who aren't being fed, who aren't getting help. And so the board of the RWJCC is very focused on trying to combat that over these next couple of months. We just posted for an executive director. I've been serving in the capacity only because our budget is so low. We couldn't have program staff and an ED, so my nonprofit experience has held us over, but it is time for something new.
Thank you, Jess. Okay, some questions, and I think Tom's maybe answered this already for Big Brothers Big Sisters, but in general, what do each of you think are some of the significant challenges that parents and guardians of under-resourced children face in Washington County today? Of those challenges, which do you think are being addressed by the government or community? And where are the gaps?
I really don't like going first, but anyway. Kathy, I'll do anything. So I kind of actually asked around, having some seed questions ahead of time. Can I just put this down? I think I can probably yell over.
Or I can hold it.
No, it's just going in and out. And if you can't hear me, then speak up, but I can sometimes project a little bit. But, so I asked around to, a couple partners maybe that I have to, because I really didn't want to come in with a narrow lens and answer your question. And of course, one common thing was transportation to access services that, that we do have for families. So that was one need that we had identified. And to answer the part about community, yes, the community is putting an effort forth, through CAC, through some, other agencies to help. A second need that we see within our community, when you have a family that's what I would say under-resourced, a family who is trying to work and has to take a second shift job or a third shift job, childcare is almost unheard of for second and third shift workers in our area. So that's definitely a need. And second and third shift childcare that's quality and that's affordable, is definitely a need. Answering to, what's being done about that, I know that Maryland State Department does offer scholarships, and they have really increased that over the last year or so, for our families, so that more families are eligible for scholarships, for childcare while they're working. So that's a wonderful thing. But two other places, and this is a later question that I'll talk more to, but two other places that I really see a need in our community, as did the couple people I asked. One is connection. It's connection for children to, adult mentors, just as Tom was talking about, adult role models, in their community. It's children who are making that connection even within their families, where the parents and children are engaged in activities together. That's a need. And also a connection for our adults, a connection for our adults to work with other parents, to meet with other parents and community members, to get the tools that they need to help support their parenting, but also to strengthen them as individuals and to strengthen them in their community. What's being done in our community for either of them? One of the things that's being done for connection is parent cafes. And one of the people that really has taken a strong hold on leading that initiative is Joan Balbueno, who's down at the end of that table. Parent cafes are just it's an opportunity for parents to come together and talk through some of the challenges that you have as a parent. They even have parent cafes for teens, and the teens also appreciate being able to have that opportunity. But it's a non-threatening environment. You don't come and try to solve other people's problems when you're there, but it is a way to build community, and it is a way to also strengthen families and strengthen individuals. One of the other things that I see that's being in our community in order to help with the children's connection piece is the Big Brothers Big Sisters movement, and also after school programs, extended learning. The schools who are Title I have community school counselors who are trying to really push for what they call an extended learning, which is much the same as what Vester Community of Hope is doing through their Boost program. So it's taking an hour after school, and really the kids feel like they're coming to a club, but they're coming to an interest activity. It might be cooking, it might be music, it might be art. It's an opportunity for probably a wider range of age of students to come together after school in a safe space, and also to build some of those social emotional skills. Much like Girls Inc. gives an opportunity to do that. Boys and Girls Club gives an opportunity to do that as well. So it's just another opportunity, and it's happening right at the schools. And wow, I see the perfect people right in this group getting on board for that. Here, yes.
With that particular program, do children have to sign up and come to everything they offer, or I can foresee a child who wants to come to cooking, but
Right.
not to something else?
No,
How is that?
it would be signing up for what they're interested in.
Okay,
It's signing up for something they want to learn a little more about.
thank you.
And so at Bester, the Bester Community of Hope is doing what's called Boost, and their community counselor, I think, is going to be, kind of working together to kind of build that program a little bit more as well. You used to do learning parties, and I just have to say, you were the learning parties, because it was through your work that we got more grants to be able to reach out to parents. We might not have reached 100, or we might not have reached 500 parents on a surface level, but we reached several parents who not came to one learning party, but probably came to 5 or 10 learning parties. And sometimes we think, well, why are they coming to 10? They've already been to this one. Do you know why? Because they're building their community there. They're building their network of families that they know that they can go to. They're building a network of trust with the very people who are even presenting those learning parties. They're learning skills, but they're also building their parent group together. So I first have to tell you thank you for that, because the work that was done, and I watched parents grow through attending those learning parties, because not only did it start there, but from those learning parties, they said, well, what's next? What's the next thing that we can do together? What's the next thing that you're going to offer? So it wasn't about coming and getting something free. It was about coming and learning together. It was about helping with my parenting skills, or even just having another adult who I recognize is going through the same thing. So learning parties and parent cafes and school, the extended learning programs that are happening in schools, you guys are the experts. You really are. And sometimes you don't have to be a total expert, but if you can show interest in that child. So I see you guys there. The other thing that I would really like to see come back, we knew before COVID that there was trauma in our area. And Kathy is a speaker with that, along with me. And we were able to bring a day of conference to the community right before we shut down. We not only brought, with Legia from the Kinship Care Navigators from DSS, she did a half-day program for parents in our community, and then we brought a speaker, Craig Boykin, who made quite an impact on everybody that heard him speak. But he was one of the children who rose from tremendous adverse childhood experiences. We need the awareness, and then grow from the awareness to how can we help our children and help our parents. We need to continue that work, because now more than ever, this last year has been horrible. Just as Jessica has said, children have seen and been in situations that are horrific that they should never be in, and they should never see. Things that would horrify you and me. Our crime is up. Our violent crime is up. Our homicides are up. And really sadly, child abuse is up, and death by child abuse is up in our area. Our parents need us, and our children need us. So how can we do that? We need to reach out, and we need to understand what it is that we really need to reach out and understand trauma and what that means, and what we can do about it going forward once we do have awareness to it. That's just
Anybody have any questions?
So,
Yes.
if you're in the emergency room and they obviously see a child's been abused, how do we take that information and where does it go to effect some change? If a worker in the emergency room, I think, is required by law, and they call who?
Child welfare. DSS.
Child welfare. And then, would they reach out to any of your programs?
Oftentimes, yes. So our program is also part of what alternative response. So when a family is referred to child welfare for any type of child abuse or neglect, a multitude of different things can happen. One of those things, they could go through an investigative process where child welfare then investigates the circumstances leading to what got that child to the hospital. But they can also tap into an alternative response. So they can determine, you know, maybe there was a lack of supervision. You know, mom's working 3 jobs and she wasn't home. And maybe that's what ended the kid up in the emergency room. So instead of putting mom through an investigative process where at the end of the day we just simply look at her and tell her she's bad, she's wrong, she didn't protect her kids and that was her responsibility, or we can offer mom services. So in those situations, we would receive a referral from child welfare. They would identify, you know, mom needs assistance in getting proper child care. We would then accept that referral and we would work with mom on whatever issue mom identified to strengthen her family. But where I would really encourage this group is to think before that. So what can you guys do before a kid ends up in the emergency room, right? So think more prevention. How can we prevent a kid from ever getting to that point? And then we're preventing trauma, right? So along the lines of what Kathy spoke of, that's where early intervention services are absolutely key. So she's talking about those learning parties, and you know, you can look at it as, okay, a bunch of parents get together and we eat and we giggle and we laugh and talk about the woes of parenting. But it's so critical because you don't recognize that something as simple as a learning party can prevent trauma later down the road. And it's absolutely proven. I'm not making it up sitting here talking because it sounds good. It's absolutely proven. The absolute number one most impactful thing that you can do with a child, and it's so incredibly impactful that it will actually physically change the structure of their brain. You could do a pre and post, do a brain scan, and you can actually see a physical change in someone's brain. And it's easy and it's free. And it's a relationship with a healthy adult. Free, right? I mean, every person here is fully capable of taking a child under their wing, and that's why I absolutely commend programs like Big Brothers Big Sisters, those that do mentor work, because a lot of us have the benefit of that one person never giving up on us being a parent, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, a coach. But a lot of kids don't have that, and it's incredibly simple. When some of the most critical things that we see working with families in the community, as I mentioned, the homelessness crisis, we know that it's a crisis across the country, but I am telling you, it is significantly worse in Washington County than it is in most places in the US. We don't have safe places for kids to sleep, but we will turn around and condone a mom for sleeping on the park bench or on the slide over here with her 3 kids. And it can be easy to look at that mom and say to her, go find some place to sleep. But until you've walked in her shoes, I can assure you that there is a strong possibility that that was the safest place for her and her kids to sleep. So adopting a lens in which we view people and work with people has been probably one of the most life-changing experiences for myself and those of us at our agency as we've adopted this unconditional care model, that you are inherently valuable. I need to check myself and realize what my role is in this working relationship. It is not to judge. It It is to accept you for where you are at, and provide to you unconditional love and unconditional support. I think probably the second biggest, most impactful issue that families are struggling with and impacted by is the opioid epidemic. That again, we're seeing across the country, but we also know is in greater impact in Washington County. And bringing along folks like David and his people is absolutely critical. I can tell you from personal experience, the first time I ever heard of harm reduction, I kind of wiggled in my seat a little bit. Because I'm like, wait a minute, what are we doing? We're gonna give them needles? Like, what are we doing, David? But it makes sense, and I can testify before you today that the work of harm reduction has saved lives. And not just parents' lives, but kids' lives. And we can look at that through a very unconditional care lens, right? So I can look at a person and see their value. I can recognize that, no, I don't think it's a great idea that you use drugs right now. But this is where you're at, and I'm going to love you for where you are, and I want to keep you safe until tomorrow, because maybe tomorrow's the day, right? And so it's embracing people for where they are, where they're at, and really having this very non-judgmental approach. There are lots of, as you can see, lots of agencies in the community that are doing absolutely fantastic work, and certainly could use additional support from the community, whether it is simply volunteering, joining a board, looking at a potential new position, collaborating. I mean, I've had the benefit of collaborating with so many of the people here today, and really just focusing on investing in what we have, but also recognizing that yes, the state is providing some support in some areas, and other agencies are providing support in some areas, but it's still not enough. And so the last thing that I do want to mention, Kathy had also mentioned, was safe, affordable, and accessible childcare. Until I had actually walked in the shoes of a parent that I was working with, I had absolutely no clue the barriers that it would take for this woman to actually make it out the day. Go get a job. I promise you it's not that easy, because there's jobs everywhere, right? I mean, there's help wanted signs, businesses are closing early, maybe only opening for 2 hours a day because they don't have the workforce. Yet we see all of these people living in poverty. It can't be as easy as just go getting a job, because people will do it, I promise. But I'm working with a single mom of 3 kids, and I can't just tell her to go get a job because she can't afford childcare. State of Maryland offers childcare subsidies, but you have to have a job in order to even apply. So what's mom going to do with her 3 kids while she works for a month before she can apply for the childcare subsidy, before she even gets it? So is mom going to allow her children to stay with someone she barely knows, who's also homeless and maybe using? Because we as a society just keep telling her, go get a job. So parents are being put in very tough circumstances, making very tough decisions that I feel just blessed that I don't have to make on a given day. And to really understand the systems at work. People are not set up to succeed. So the last thing I would leave you with is, if you are willing and you feel compelled to create a program, address a gap, that don't add barriers. Don't create all these criteria that people have to reach in order to be served. Let it go. Don't put an age range. A parent has to make a certain amount of money. You're going to miss some of the most vulnerable people by trying to create barriers. And what we need is more barrier-free access to very important services.
I think going first was probably the easiest, because by the time you get to me, and Tom here will be repeating most of what you've heard. Just to add on to what Jen said about it not being very easy just to go get a job. The majority of these families are already on social services or receive some type of assistance. The moment they get a job, social services knows and will cut their benefits. And so they really don't even have enough time once they get a job to get on their feet, because you know, their rent has now gone up to whatever their income is. Their food stamps have been cut, and they've not really even had an opportunity to get caught up for the things that they were already, you know, struggling with. Robert W. Johnson Community Center is where, you know, where I volunteer the majority of my time, but I also work for Habitat for Humanity, and so I would have to add that what has already been said, the lack of affordable housing is a huge issue. There are generations of families that have lived in public housing because that's what they can afford, and they know exactly how much their rent will be and that type of thing. I've recently been dealing with a lot of families who are now being put out of their apartments. They've lived in these apartments or houses. They were already somewhat deplorable, but now because of the boom of different economic things coming into Hagerstown, landlords are putting these families out because they can get much more rent. So they're not allowing them to re-sign a lease, or they're taking their rent up tremendously. The majority of them have been just going month to month because that was what has been done for years, and now there are families being asked to sign leases that are $200, $300, $400 more than what their rent is already. So these families, you know, on paper, we just put a family in a house and we Habitat did. We went through the financial literacy courses. We've done everything that we know to do, and the family on paper looks like they can afford the house. 30% of their income is what their mortgage and stuff is, but they have 4 or 5 kids, and so there's a lot of things that aren't considered when doing that. They're paying child care. There's one car, both parents work different shifts. It is really a struggle and somewhat of a gap. There has to be assistance and help for those families that fall right in the middle. They're not making way below the poverty level. They're not making moderate income. They're just making ends meet and just getting by. There's been quite a few families, women. There's a lot of single moms in the Jonathan Street area, as if, you know, as in all of the other parts of the town. There's been a lot of women that have asked us to host a single moms club, based off of the movie, I'm sure. There was a movie about single moms, and they came together and they rallied. They took care of each other's children. They made dinners, and then they spent time together. And so that's what some of the moms are asking for. They want to be able to come to one place, get education, listen to people, learn how to clean up their credit, learn how to make certain meals, and work that way. I didn't have the benefit of all these questions ahead of time.
You don't need to answer them all.
Okay. So we've already said childcare and role models. I think the community center is as strong as it is where it is, because the people who work in the community center also grew up in the community center, and so their moms or dads know the staff, and so they trust them, because that's an issue. Trust is a huge issue with a lot of low-income families. Sharing, you know, your personal information or your finances and that type of thing. So there has to be a level of trust, and we have it. We've had the parenting classes at the center, and so those programs work where when families trust, and so this panel has reminded me of the different things that we need to focus on. There's been 2 children that recently asked us for sewing classes. We used to learn sewing in school, but we don't anymore. And so now I need to reach out to some organizations or some churches, especially because I know there's a lot of sewers there, and maybe offer a course at the center. We've had dance, but sewing and cooking are huge. When we get our monthly boxes from the food pantry, Maryland Food Bank, we try to teach the children to cook whatever's in the box. some of them have never seen a turnip or a squash. They don't know what to do with it, and they would never try it. So we're trying to bring people in to try to teach them what to do with those. So the workshops and seminars and that type of thing are definitely beneficial programs for the children after school, someplace safe for them that they can grow and thrive.
I'll just add quickly just a few thoughts. So just to, I didn't touch on this when I was sharing sort of what our target population is, but if you look at the statistics for our community, there's actually in the city of Hagerstown, over 40% of families are led by a single mom. That's pretty shocking, really, if you think about it. In Washington County, it's 24%. So there's definitely, there are families, I know, for my family, I'm married, we have 2 sons who are fairly self-sufficient, but it's a challenge. I mean, life is difficult, it throws you curveballs all the time. So take, one of the adults out of the household, and it just really, really complicates things. And then on top of that, if you add, some type of socioeconomic disadvantage, everything is so doggone expensive. I mean, I actually don't know how families that are led by a single income earner make it on a regular minimum wage. So I was thinking, so she touched on this a little bit, of sort of that strengths-based approach. And I'm a firm believer, and always have been in my time in working in human services, is that families, parents, they want their kids to be happy. They want their kids to be successful. I mean, I don't think you would meet a parent that doesn't want those things. It's just sometimes they're so overwhelmed by their circumstances that they just can't, they need some support. So 2 things I think, that your congregations could do is, support programs that exist, to lift some of the burdens of some of those families. Because the reality is, I mean, while our services might be, mine in particular, more directed toward the child, it still benefits the whole family. The parent has a sense of accomplishment. They've connected their child with a resource. They see the positive aspects of it. Their child is happier. That makes them happier. So it does benefit the whole family. The second thing is sort of combating that, and I think it's very alive and well in this community, that's the sentiment that families just need to get it together. Why don't they just get it together? They need to get a job, they need to do denomination. There is that belief in the potential in all human beings, and there is that belief in charity and wanting to uplift others. So maybe just having opportunities for your congregation to learn more about that. This community, this community is interesting. It's such a and I see it in my own family, where there are such conservative members of this community that they really just have no patience for any of what they consider sort of the negative aspects of the community. The reality is these types of things exist in all communities, but we're all part of it, and we all play a part in improving it.
Thanks, guys. Questions from you all? Oh, I mean, I have others, but I'd like to open it up to you guys. So, Steve, then Lise.
Well, it seems like the problem of housing seems to be a critical issue that you've mentioned. But do you see any proactive steps that can be taken to assist and help that situation? It's pretty complicated. I just wondered if you, it's easy to find a problem, it's harder to kind of struggle with the solution.
Absolutely. I would say start somewhere, even if it's small. We have the St. John's Family Shelter here that's available, who are undeniably an amazing resource to the families that we serve. However, that's 3 units. We need more. So even if we had 3 more, there's 3 more families who are not sleeping outside in a car or an unsafe location. So you can look at this large picture, because I do it on a daily basis, and I feel so incredibly overwhelmed. And it's almost paralyzing sometimes. Like, how can I possibly even make a dent in any of this? But you just start somewhere and start somewhere small. So if it's 3 units, it's 3 units. I don't know if it's still for sale, but I saw it on Facebook. On South Potomac Street, there's a 6 housing unit that just recently went up for sale. So it's finding people who are willing to invest in the community and making those places available to families in need. So it can be something small. I agree. It's such a large, drastic issue.
I know it's not.
And I know that the city is also attempting to address some of these buildings that might need to come down and new ones can be erected. That is also another great starting place. But we need to make sure that we're having these opportunities available for those in poverty. I mean, you can call Hagerstown Housing right now and ask them what their waiting list is. If I were to go apply today, I can assure you my grandkids might have a place to live. I am not, my kids are not. And it's not Hagerstown Housing's fault. It's just the reality of where we're at. And so we just need places, we need buildings. And I know that is also a very large issue, but that would be my suggestion.
I don't know, but I also think about going back to what Jen said about preventative measures. Because building strong individuals and building strong communities helps to negate some of the evictions. Knowing that I have somebody to call when I have a crisis, knowing where to go and that I can access that when I have a crisis is far reaching. Frederick Douglass, and I love his quote, "It is easier to build a strong child than it is to fix a broken man." So if we start young, not necessarily for this particular issue, but when we start young and when we start 2 generation with both the parent and the child, we can make such a difference. The brain development that Jen spoke about, the brain development, 80% of the brain develops by the time you're 5. 80% of the neurons are connected. So the difference that we can make by taking advantage of those first 5 years and building strong children and offering programs and reaching those parents at that time as well. But also there's the brain difference when you look at the brain scan between a child who has come through the adverse experiences, a child who lives in significant poverty compared to a child who's not. So we really, it's not just about picking yourself up by your bootstraps. There's a brain difference, and we really need to address some of that in the preventative measures prior to some of the crisis.
And I will say the parts of the brain that are different are, in some studies show a 20 to 40%, that part of the brain is smaller. And that part of the brain is responsible for regulating your emotions, making good choices. So when you think about, now I'm 21 years old and I'm acting a fool on the streets, it makes a whole lot of sense to me, right? Because that part of your brain is significantly smaller. And that really should enable us in some way to have a little bit more compassion that this isn't, and I'm not negating personal responsibility in any way, shape, or form, but to recognize that there is an inherent difference. Yeah, that pick yourself up by your bootstraps, I think it should be like scratched out of books wherever it's written. It's like not a thing anymore.
Well, because you can only work with the tools in your toolbox. So if you didn't have the role models, if you didn't have the opportunities, then you don't have that to go forward with. So then when your brain is smaller and you're acting form street, there's a reason for that. Because they don't have the other tools to make that change.
We're gonna do one more question and then I think we'll need to wrap up here. Let these folks get back to work.
Thank you. I had a question about the group mentoring that you're starting up. Is that going to be similar to the classes that are offered, like cooking classes or healthy eating or financial literacy? Or?
Actually not. So we are actually, it's going to be curriculum based, and it'll actually take place over the course of about five months. There will be two meetings per month, and we will what we'll do is actually match each adult volunteer with up to 3 kids, and they will go through a course of activities. The first month is a discussion about the growth mindset, which is essentially just developing a positive mindset and kind of reframing things, which is important for all of us, but really important for many of our kids who do have some adversity in their life. There's a month where we focus on kindness and service and charity in the community. There's a month where we're focusing on leadership. So it'll actually be, there will be staff that will actually facilitate it. Everyone will be together as a group the entire session. They're an hour and a half, 2 times a month. And the facilitator will sort of walk them through sort of a lesson plan, and there will be opportunities for the big and their littles to do some of the group work, within their small group, and then they'll come back to the larger group, but they'll stay together. It's actually a nice option because it's completely facilitated, so there's not that uncertainty about, okay, what am I going to do with my little brother today? Like he sort of enjoys this, or he may enjoy it. It takes all that uncertainty out of that. So the volunteer can just come, and really their role is just to interact with the kids, form a friendship. There's actually part of the lesson each week that they meet is sort of a getting to know you, so they'll learn about each other, learn about each other's families, that kind of thing.
Great, thank you.
So, I think we should give our appreciation. Next month's program is going to focus on racial diversity, and there are connections between the needs of our community and our struggle with thinking that we're not racist but actually being racist. From the programs that were started in the 60s to the Reagan era, we've had the whole country has turned toward a more conservative approach based on the theory that it's just about economics, nothing else, but it's based upon, in reality, the fact that we don't respect black faces, faces of other colors among us, and it's their problem, and so we've got to adjust our whole economics so that we don't let black people take, inappropriate advantage of services that are provided by the government. So but I'm not the speaker next month. I'm just
Tanya, do you want to speak for a moment? No?
whetting your appetite for making sure that you sign up and bring some additional people. because we need to solve multiple problems in our community. And it falls upon those persons that come to this from a faith perspective, perhaps a little more so than everyone else, to own our own history, to understand what's going on. We need to change ourselves a little bit, and we can then be agents to help God in God's work of trying to change the whole world that we live in. So, with that, we thank you and look forward to seeing you next month. Take care.
Let me stop this.